Welcome back to Philly Coco presents Side Project Spotlight, Episode 6, our journey in the development of our watch app. My name is Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are a Philly-based Coco Heads community focused on Apple development ecosystem, which includes and not exclusive to iOS, Mac, tvOS, and watchOS. Our goal is to assist our developer community to make cool stuff. And that's my pitch. How's that?
So sounds like somebody rehearsed that.
Trying to refine the beginning. You know, just like the app that we're building, this podcast is kind of like our work in progress. So we will continue to strive to make better content, quote unquote.
It's good. It sounds better each time.
There goes all the people that listen just for the intro.
Okay, so we're going to try to keep this short and tight today. So let's kind of go over how we were doing, what we were doing for this past 2 weeks, and what we accomplished. So I'll start with you, Aaron, and then we'll kind of go around.
Let's see, what did I have? So the new core data stuff was the main thing. I also didn't actually get to Siri because we didn't get to deep links. So, but I did work on core data stuff and also some stuff with the shared state for the card deck, which I did before I started doing the core data. So I was able to sort of make that work. There are some bugs. I fixed the big one, which broke the whole app when I moved the card deck out of the card UI because I was looking for it on launch, and actually only on first launch, which was a good thing I deleted the app and found that out before I merged that branch because it was completely broke it. Was able to make sure I injected it in before.
So you had to update you that core data migrations and some changes to schema.
Yeah. So for the other stuff, I'm talking about the card deck thing, which is its own thing, which is not related to core data really. But then for the actual migration thing, it was like a big buildup of how do I do this, and then it was like, oh, Xcode or whatever the core data backend handles it automatically, pretty much. As long as you're using their default implementation, you just have to create a version, basically a copy of the data model file, and then any of the changes, and you point to the new one, say it's based on the old one, and as long as your changes are just new entities or new properties in your entity or things like that, new relationships that it can handle, it just migrates it for you. And
so that was one thing I was kind of curious about, because I guess we can kind of go into a little bit later if we need to, but it's just one of those, like, it used to be something where you would set that up, and then if there's anything complicated, you still have to like write some code, like especially if you're like changing. A good example would maybe like if you're changing the name of a field, that would be complicated enough for you to.
Yeah, looks like that's fine now. It's all part of the lightweight migrations, which is handled automatically.
Cool, that's very cool. So that's it for you?
Yeah, pretty much, I think.
Okay, so I finally got the notifications working properly from last time. So so you can go in there, you can schedule your notifications, and they work, and you can select incorrect or correct, and that will update the stats manager and actually update the deck too. And that part of that was Aaron's help there. We both had the same idea of how to do that, but I couldn't get it to work, and Aaron just did it. So there you go. As usual, Aaron's a VIP because I had some kind of weird. I kept doing the syntax wrong or something. So I don't know what it is. But one of the issues I had with it was I don't know what the kanji is when you get a notification, because we have to schedule them in advance, but we don't know what today's or this moment's kanji is. So we can talk about it a little bit later. But we had to figure out how to handle that. But it is handled right now. So you have incorrect and correct. Updates all the stats just like you're doing a daily test. There's one thing I think we'd like to add to it that doesn't currently work, which is just to be able to jump from the notification to the daily test. So we can talk about that. But notifications works, and of course you're listening to this podcast, so the podcast works from last time too. So there you go. And That was my thing.
So I done a sort of a pass at trying to like refine the UI for this week. I really didn't get much work done the first week of our sprint, of our 2-week sprint. So I was a little disappointed about that. Tried to ramp up, and this week was also a little bit touch and go until towards the end of the week. So I was able to do a lot of work on UI refinements, some bug fixes related to the card deck. So now, and I asked Aaron to help me out with adding a few other data items like the own readings and the name readings, and some try to flesh out some of the things that were a little inconsistent with what you hear in the text to speech to what you see in the metadata that you're being presented. So now that works a little bit better. That reads a little bit better for us. So I've also expanded upon refining just the general UIs here and there. So in the settings or in the daily progress, I've sort of added some spacers or like refined some of the layouts so it's a little more consistent. And so now we can I think the flow feels a lot better in the app now. I've also added some minor touches. So I've changed the when you swipe the card left or right, makes a little more sense visually than it did before, or at least it should. There are some a little bit of weird UI tweaks that we can still fix, but for the most part, I think it works okay.
Yeah, I like that the card swipe now the symbols aren't see through.
Yeah. That was a big it's basically like an I basically overlapped layered the buttons on top with like a full card, like a full rectangle basically to cover the whole thing.
I didn't have a chance to look at the code yet, but that was one of the most obvious UI, not bug technically, but lack of refinement that I think that it makes the whole app feel better just doing that. So I was swiping back and forth on my watch, having a good time, not understanding the kanji.
Yeah, so that's it for me. And I guess from that, go ahead.
I'm sorry, it sounds like we actually did what we meant to do.
More or less. I mean, ideally we would want to get this, this was our sort of okay, this is I would say we're at the point where having a test flight build to share with people actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think we're ready to launch the public beta.
Yeah. But that also gets into some funny issues with I don't know why, but I've been trying to get Xcode Cloud to work. So setting up the workflow to archive and build is actually pretty straightforward. The problem is it doesn't want to do the final step of building it so that we can create a test flight deployment, and that's the part that I'm still confused about.
I thought it was a bug. That was like a known bug in Xcode Cloud.
Yeah, I assume so, but it seems like such a silly thing for that to be it's such a bare bones app.
Well, I don't know if did you look at the latest error that you got, or you can't see it because it's under my GitHub account?
No, actually, I didn't know that was I'm only looking at the App Store the App Store side of things.
Because the error that was there's a bundle ID or a bundle version for the extension and the actual app, and they have to match, and it's saying they're not the same. So that's what it's saying was the error for the last Xcode Cloud build. So I don't know.
I did check that and I did fix it, but it did not do.
Still didn't fix it.
It still didn't fix it. Let me check. Let me just check. I could be wrong, but they're all version 1. And they're all the same build number of, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily anything you're doing wrong.
Well, one time I checked and it said it couldn't connect to the GitHub repo for some reason.
That I can see. That's different.
And I searched on that and it was a lot of people were saying that it was happening to them too.
I mean, the one thing that's kind of funny, I think, not funny, but interesting, is that it's possible. No, that shouldn't matter, right? Because as long as you're connected and authenticated against the GitHub repo, through, I guess, the Xcode, whatever.
It's like a
Xcode Cloud.
GitHub app that authenticates with your what's it? Your App Store Connect thing.
Doesn't use the GitHub key. You have to generate the
No,
access
it's
token?
like its own thing. It's like its own app in your like GitHub like apps section that like you authenticate. It just like pops up a password thing and you put in your
I've
password.
had I haven't gotten GitHub and Xcode to talk to each other yet because and I think the reason is when I generated my access token, I did it according to GitHub's instructions, the latest version of them, and I generated the key using an algorithm that Xcode does not think is valid. So when I try to use that key, that it always gives me this error message that says that that's not the right algorithm, and I'm like, but this is the one GitHub told me to use. So like, and this continues into the latest beta too.
I really struggle with using GitHub integration or in Xcode. I just end up doing command line or some desktop app, and it's like that's just easier anyway.
Yeah. Have you guys watched the Xcode Cloud talks from WWDC? Because I only just watched them the other day, like this week. Very cool. You can even go so far as to have webhooks in here. You can have scripts run. You have an environment, and it handles some secrets management too for build time secrets. I mean, it's a fully fledged CI environment. It's more than just the simple workflow that they demo in the initial talk or that we're doing. It's very cool. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's great if it works. Then we could talk, right?
It works, yeah. I mean, this is get it to work, and then I wondered, do you guys know what it actually runs on though on the back end? Like, because traditionally, if you make a third party site like this, don't they need to have like Mac Minis or something to run? Like the tooling. So, like, what do you think Apple's using on the back end? They have simulators and stuff, so I guess maybe that technology. I don't know.
I mean, to do what exactly?
Well, like, do they need to have ARM machines on the back end to do some of the building? Don't you need an ARM machine to build for ARM, or do you not?
I'm sure they have like a whole rack of
what, like Mac Minis? That's what I'm saying. They used to build computers that were rack mounted many years ago, right? But they don't anymore. So
probably Mac Minis.
Do they need to use a Mac to do this stuff, or can it just be?
I mean, couldn't you use? Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I'm curious. I didn't see anyone mention what it actually runs on. I'm just wondering. I mean, do they need to use Macs for this? I don't know. But I was just curious if Apple itself has just like a bunch of Mac Minis sitting somewhere doing builds. I mean, knowing them, they probably have like a bunch of like a custom version of a Mac Mini.
Yeah, maybe they just do customized racks or something. I don't know, but
or some refurbished stuff. Who knows?
Well, for you to do it yourself, years ago when I was looking at doing this at work with Jenkins, like you needed a Mac obviously to run stuff on in order to do the building. So that's why I was just wondering, like.
So I mean, getting a test flight build up in general is not going to be a big deal. I should probably just do one now, just to make sure that we have. Because I don't know if we internally we have it just fine. I don't know if I've got it through the test flight review process yet.
Yeah, one of the things, if we get the Xcode stuff to work, Xcode Cloud stuff to work, is you could have the test flight automatically tweet out that a build is ready, which I saw was one of the best things.
Oh, you can automatically do that stuff? Oh, that's pretty cool. It would be amazing, but I don't think it's very viable as a concept. Well, I don't know if it's how viable it is as a concept, but if they could actually like implement some version of shortcuts in Xcode Cloud or something of that nature, where maybe it's not integrated, but like some kind of version of shortcut, right? Where like a shortcut in that whole flow.
Well, what they do have is multiple points in which you can run shell scripts. And then you can just do whatever. And they have a whole bunch of environment variables you can access to make decisions and get paths and that kind of thing. It's very cool.
Very cool. Very cool. We'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah, so because that doesn't work, we're just going to manually make a test flight build and put it out.
Yep. Yes. You know what? I think we do actually have it. External. We have that whole external path taken care of, so we actually can do a link and then send it out to anybody who wants it.
You put it through app review beta. Oh my god, English is my first language. Beta app review, right?
American English.
It's not a real language. But the beta app review just went through without anyone actually looking at it. Is what happened. That was amazing to me. I've never.
It's like usually it's kind of funny because nowadays it almost might take just slightly more time to do an internal test flight beta review through Apple than it would like an actual like app submission.
Yeah, but we're gonna have a link for the build by the time this podcast is out. We hope.
Oh, that reminds me. So I think since we're getting close to the deadline, Aaron, maybe not so much. You need to provide this. I need to help you with the App Store metadata submission. So we need to get all that cleared out of the way. So simple things like the copyright stuff, just put it under your name. And keywords, just put like placeholders for now. Just get things going. And maybe like in our GitHub issues, start like bullet pointing a list of things that we need to get in there. I can provide a majority of that for you.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, but just do things that you can fill out. Like rating is a good example. Like that's obvious. Like it's going to be for everyone, so you won't have to worry about stuff. You can fill that stuff out.
So Kotaro, I guess while we're on that subject, then why don't we just talk briefly about the process of doing a submission then, for those that are unfamiliar?
Yeah. So basically, once you're done and you're pretty happy with your application, you can submit it to Apple for App Store review, which usually nowadays takes about a day for them to review it manually and make sure you're not making an app that is nefarious, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, they look at the app and try to see if it matches the app review guidelines, which are published, and you can read them.
Yep, and it doesn't crash, and it does what it says it's going to do. That kind of stuff.
They do some automated checks too, scans of the code base, looking to see if you're using private APIs, that kind of thing.
So on now the App Store submission process is approximately like, you have to do a couple things. You have to make sure your app title is unique, your keywords are relevant, and you only get like a certain set of characters to work with. So you want to make sure that you do keywords that are easy, that would be ideal for when people are searching for your app. So in our case, kanji. We don't actually need to put kanji in a weird way, but maybe you want to put like Japanese, you want to put learning, you want to put education or something of that nature. And even that might not be necessary because you also have categories. So one of the categories is education. And then a description of your app, what's new, which in our case, nothing. Maybe some promo text, copyright information. One of the more recent ones that we need to do is provide information of whether some privacy information, whether we have some kind of analytics software that we're using to extract usage data.
Every app needs a privacy policy, even if that policy is just we don't collect any data.
Right. So in our case, I should say, I'm going to provide one for Aaron, and then we'll figure out collectively where we're going to put it. Most likely just a GitHub page.
Yeah, it needs to be a URL, not text.
But the hilarious part is, like, I've done contracts where I just pointed to a Google Sheet.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter where it's hosted as long as it's public and App Review can see it.
Yep, as long as it's public. Exactly.
And I don't even think they look too closely at the actual text in it. But
yeah, I mean, they might, depending on what you put in your privacy nutrition data, whatever you call it. It's
Oh, right. I forgot about the nutrition data. I'm sure they look at it, but I'm not sure they're going to scan every single word and parse it. But I forgot about the nutrition label too. You have to disclose what information you collect and how you collect it. I find the whole process a little confounding in places, like a little confusing, but
especially if you're using like one of the annoying things is like in the beginning of that whole thing, if you were using something like Google Analytics, like it was hard to tell what you need to disclose about, like, because as a third party analytics, like you might not necessarily be doing a lot of um, a lot of data mining, if you will, but who knows what Google's doing behind your back, because you don't have, you're not trying to find that information, but of course Google's like, well, we want everything. So
yeah, and Google didn't really provide a whole lot of guidance on it because they don't want to be responsible either because ultimately, from Apple's perspective, you, the developer, are responsible for the data in the app. It doesn't matter if you're using a third party. So you have to disclose stuff. I mean, I don't remember exactly what I did. I used Google Analytics, and it was fine.
So, Aaron, when you set this up, the easiest thing you can do about that is say we collect nothing, because we don't. I mean, in our case, very easy, not a big deal. What's the other thing? And then after that, once you've set it up, screenshots. Actually, that's the most painful one. And then once you submit it and it gets approved, you can decide to just automatically release it, or release it when you feel like it. In our case, I think we should probably have it pending. Yeah, hold on, like wait till we're all comfortable releasing it, and then
Yeah, I usually hold for release. It's also good at this point if we just get something in review, because even if we don't release that version of it, at least we'll know if there's a huge red flag. It's not always 100%, because you can get through app review and then the next one you can change almost nothing, and then the next guy can reject you. But sometimes it's nice to just have something waiting in the wings that we could release.
Yeah, but at the very least, we would get our metadata out of the way, which is probably one of the more annoying part of the process.
And yeah, in our case, you're gonna have to upload a new version of the build. So with a new SKU, if you don't already have one made, and we have to decide on what the name is, because the name has to be unique on the whole app store.
Yeah, so I guess that's a conversation we can have outside this pod. Just know it'll be prefixed with kanji.
Yeah, there you go. Not an actual kanji, but the English word kanji.
Yeah. Because I don't want to think too hard.
No, I don't think we need to. No, I like names of apps that are clear and tell you what they are. That works.
Yep. I mean, I have an idea of what I think we can get away with. It just depends on like if it's available on the. That's the other thing too. If the name has to be unique, so like we can't put an app called, Facebook, right? Just by the pure name of it. So I mean that would be actually an obvious example. But I mean, like in our case, like even if the app wasn't copywritten or trademarked per se, it still has to be unique. So that's the part we'd have to figure out.
Okay, so we will get into that. Maybe we'll learn more about how that went next time. So moving on from all that, we have some Xcode Cloud issues, but we're going to do a beta. Probably by the time this podcast comes out, you'll be able to download the app as a public beta somehow. Check our Twitter feed for Philly Coca. We have down here Swift UI Conditionals, what you put in the notes. What are you talking about?
Well, I guess it's kind of like any if-then or switch statements. Before, when Swift UI first came out, conditionals like if-then statements or switches were barely there or non-existent. So back then you would have if, but you couldn't have else. And you would definitely not have switches within a Swift UI view, right? Because you want to keep the views constrained to like just presenting the views, right? But if you wanted to do anything like, I want this button to show up if I have data, right? Or in our case, I want this the refresh button to show up when I have no more cards to be tested on. And so nowadays you can kind of do it, but I'm always worried. In our case, it's not a big deal, but it always looks ugly in my mind. It feels like it goes against the the principles of doing it Swift UI, and I guess I'm trying to figure out. And I've heard there are potential performance issues related to that.
Are we using a lot? I don't think we're using a lot of conditionals.
We are doing it not a lot in one view, but we are doing it scattered around the app. I mean, I am.
I mean, what you have to do some kind of decision making for the views. I mean, if you're just doing it to select what kind of view to display, is that really so bad, or are you talking about using them with more business logic?
I mean, I guess I want to. I guess it's more of a topic of like style than it is necessarily a topic of whether or not this is and performance, right? So I think it because the state, I worry that there's it's updating the state in that check. And so that's one thing that I know there's tools to check on that, especially like when the state updates, you can actually check on that. There's a way to do a print statement for that in the app, which is pretty cool, in the view, which is pretty cool. I just only recently discovered that. I think one of the things that I could do is clean it up. This is for a long-term thing. This is much more like how you would consider refactoring, which I find Swift UI great for, is that maybe I would put it in a view builder, which is like a way so that it would do that logic inside the view builder, which will then return a view.
So what's a view builder?
It's kind of like it's a property wrapper that allows you to kind of like take a lot of this more complex view and just have it constructed kind of in a var, and then you can just put that in place of where that complicated view logic would be, and you can kind of do that inside the app, or you can even bring that outside. I'm sorry, inside the view, or bring that var outside the view. So you would construct it in that var.
So your issue with conditionals is that you're worried about performance and how ugly it is.
You know how sad it is when, like, before you would look at like a UI kit code and you'd be like, oh, I'm going past 600 lines of code, I need to refactor this, versus like Swift UI is like, oh, I'm going past 300 lines of code, I need to refactor this.
It's a valid concern though, because we're running this on a watch, and it's any kind of performance issues are valid. But how do you measure that? I mean, have you tried to? Are you thinking about do it as part of our testing to do some kind of measurement to see if there's a performance penalty to some of these?
Well, that's another reason why I'm trying to like get it on device, which is another issue entirely.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we might as well transition to that. Unless you have any other opinions about it.
About conditionals, the use of them, or
yeah, within a Swift UI context.
I mean,
in a Swift UI view, I should say.
I the way I think, although I've been migrating my mental model, it's still more the traditional style. So I feel like I want to use conditionals in places. It's like the first thing that comes to mind. But it also feels like, I agree with you, it doesn't quite feel right. That, like, it doesn't feel like Swift UI wants that. It really but you do use it in places. I mean, even from the very beginning, you would have to use some amount of conditionals, like just variable checks.
I mean, you what you end up doing a lot is, yeah, some variable checks, especially like actually, it's kind of funny. They didn't used to have like let equals, statements like that. You couldn't do that in Swift UI in the beginning. Now you can. And so, or not, you couldn't even declare lets within a Swift view, and it actually scares me when when I saw that you could do that. I was like, oh, like, excuse my French. Now you can do all sorts of obnoxious things, which is great in a pinch, right? So in our case, like, I'm just like, oh, I could put a switch statement here and it'll work beautifully, and then I'll I don't know if it's going to confuse me in the future.
Yeah, I think Swift UI, it's very flexible. It's great for fast prototyping. It's great for playing with ideas, but it requires a lot of discipline, I think, in order to make sure things are factored appropriately, so you don't have just giant spaghetti code mess.
What you end up doing a lot is a lot of ternaries, right? So you're doing a lot of a lot of stuff within like the modifiers to be like, okay, opacity, opacity is conditional based on like if the kanji is there or not, right? As an example.
But that to me, I don't like that. I mean, a lot of them, the code, I find that confusing, and like turning operators in general are not always the best kind of conditional to use because it could be kind of confusing what's happening. It's not clear. Like I would prefer an if statement just because it gives you a clear structure on the screen so you can see what's happening. So maybe that's why they brought all that stuff in so that it wasn't just a mess of turning operators. So what I'm saying is like SwiftUI, I don't think we figured out exactly the correct quote unquote approach to write SwiftUI yet. It's still evolving.
Yeah, I mean, again, like it's still fairly new in the context, like it's still evolving in and of itself, so it's to be expected.
Yeah, exactly. But it has improved. It's improved.
Yes,
and I think that you can learn how to do it in a more disciplined way or learn how to refactor the code. But the advantage of being able to quickly iterate on user interfaces and do complicated like animations and stuff, that is worth the price, I think, of the more messy code if you're not less disciplined.
I make it like a hot mess. It's just
yeah, I saw your code. Yeah, I had to look through that in order to. I was trying to copy just the look, just the color palette and everything for the notification view, and I was just like, wow.
I mean, the notification view, for example, that's actually a great example of like something that we could probably refactor into a view in of itself.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I couldn't use your view directly as it was. Because it has too many like dependencies or something, so that wouldn't work. And I thought, we could probably refactor them both into a simple view and then reuse in both places. So we're on the same wavelength here. Okay, so then transitioning to, unless Aaron has something input about SwiftUI conditionals.
No, not really. I wasn't really doing too much.
Yeah, once in a while we got to make sure Aaron speaks so people know he's still here.
Yep, still here. I don't really have anything to add to that, so we can move on.
Because you're busy coding while we're talking here.
No, not really. I was checking up on some Xcode Cloud stuff earlier,
but so Kotaro, you're having on-device problems getting the app to run on your watch, right?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like Xcode, like I do all the generic stuff like close Xcode, like I like put my device on the charger, take it off the charger. There's nothing consistent that shows the device. It's always waiting for the device.
I had this problem, and I continue to have this problem too, where it'll just kind of forget, and I'm using the production Xcode, and I've used the beta Xcode, but the production Xcode is what I'm using, like the one you get from the App Store. I don't have a great answer for you because I've had to delete the app. I've had to restart all my devices multiple times to get it to work. I think it's a little more reliable if you plug in with a cable than if you try to do network.
That's what I thought.
and I've deleted it from the watch. I made sure everything's unlocked. I mean, I don't think there's one solution. This is one of those things where I said I was having Xcode problems. This is one of those things where every time I would go to load it on my watch, it would have a problem, and it just like wouldn't work. And it would be like, waiting for the device to prepare, or it would in the in Xcode it would say that it failed to prepare for some reason. Like it wouldn't really give a clear answer. It's very frustrating. And the best I can tell you is like, when in doubt, restart everything. Like seriously, I restarted my computer. I restarted my watch. I restarted my phone. Made sure everything was unlocked again. Made sure the app was deleted. Made sure I did then I went into Xcode and tried to add it in again, plugged in with a cable, and it was okay. And you're not running like beta iOS on the phone or the watch right now, so
yeah. Wait, how do you restart watch app? I'm sorry, Apple Watch.
Hold down one of the buttons I think on the side. Should come up with you can do a hard reset, but the regular reset, I think it's the big button.
They're both pretty big. Oh, I did it. I just pressed both buttons. So if there's anybody on the podcast who is screaming right now at us of how you should do it, let us know in the comments below. Oh, we don't have comments. Yeah, you could tweet at us or join us at the Philly Cocoa Slack group and yell at us there.
Because it is very frustrating. It's probably the most frustrating thing for me about building this is getting it to run reliably on the watch and getting through that cycle of build and run. And so I've relied very heavily on the simulator because the Swift UI previews don't work reliably for me either in Xcode.
Yeah, I'm also struggling with that right now myself. So I never there's always a weird state of when Swift UI previews don't become very less reliable, at least from my experience, and a lot of it is due to whether or not you have like environment variables set up, or if you have or if you have dependencies at all, you need to like set those up well or set like basically a mock version of them.
Yeah, I found that the betas of Xcode did a better job at having the previews work, but still not 100%. So, but yeah, I just run the simulator a lot in order to do anything because it runs pretty fast on my little M1 13-inch. So I just do that.
Yeah, I saw the the watch date picker library that you added was creating like 200 errors when you try to load I think it's called the canvas for the previews.
Oh, I mean, like, yeah, and you're like, is that a real error? Is that just like
I don't know.
Like, what kind of error is that? Yeah, I know what you mean. Also, that particular view is a little sluggish to load on my watch the first time too. Sometimes, so.
But no, it wasn't even running that. I wasn't even loading that view. I was loading I was just trying to load a different view in the preview, and it was that thing was giving me saying I wasn't allowed because that was stopping it. So I was like, I just gave up on the previews.
Well, maybe I broke the previews really hard then. I don't know how.
No, I wasn't maintaining them very well. Also, it's like I feel like it's like the test-driven development thing you were talking about, Kotaro, and ranting about that. I feel it's like, oh, you have to do this extra work to make the previews work. So it's like I never bothered to do it. So it's like, oh, you just run it, but
it's certainly not as much of a brutal setup to do it.
No, but it's like always like, oh, I added this code. Now I have to add something to the preview to make the preview work for the new code.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that.
Yeah, the previews were nice when they worked, though.
Yes,
because it's just easy to isolate what you're working on, which would have been great if I could have gotten it to reliably run. But
I guess what I can do, and this is what we can kind of like lead to next steps for this final push, so to speak, is maybe see if I can time box an idea of maybe like an hour of just getting them all working. And when I say so, like a time box being like you set a time to say, okay, I will limit this to fixing all this one thing, and if it doesn't work, then I move on.
Well, I think the first thing I needed to do was like create some like fake data for the core data source. It's like I don't really even have any fake data to use, so you need to like come up with what you're going to use for all those fields, and set them up for I don't know a handful of objects that it can retrieve.
Okay. So we're all having device and SwiftUI preview problems. We're back to like old school. Let's just run in the simulator over and over again. But it works.
Be amazed how often production teams do that.
Well, I think it was working, and the last time I tried it was I could just run it independently on a separate view and not when it wasn't interacting with the rest of the app. But now it doesn't seem to be working at all in any view, no matter what.
Like the credits view is a really good example of like it should work and it's just hanging.
Yeah, it should, but I would just have these errors and it just wouldn't work. You're like, okay, but again, I think some of this is Xcode issues that got addressed in later betas because we're the release candidates. I haven't tried the latest release candidate, but I know one of the betas worked better for me. But then I'm not running the beta iOS software, so it doesn't want to run on my watch at that point.
Well, as of right now, there is an Xcode. What is it? 13.2 RC, like release candidate, that's supposed to come out soon. Hopefully beginning of next week. I mean, this coming week. So we'll see.
Yeah, but we'll need to update iOS and watchOS probably too. So right now I can't get my watch to work because it doesn't. My phone and my watch aren't set up for 13.2. So, well, these are the problems of trying to build stuff with iOS and watchOS. So, moving on from our device problems, which we have no solution for you, Kotaro, except continue banging your head against your laptop screen until it works, because that's what I did. I know, it's awful, but just try do the restart dance, and eventually it'll work. Is my experience.
The only way I could get it to work was to plug the phone in with a cable. Like it never worked. I think it worked on the beta. Like when I was running the beta a while ago, it worked wirelessly, but now it doesn't work anymore.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this is the modern day provision hell as far as. Okay. I'm sure Curtis, if he's watching or listening, is probably laughing his butt off right now. But shout out to you. GetSlopes.com.
Yeah, we got one in there. I think that's the first time we said GetSlopes.com.
If you're into skiing, and this is not sponsored by Slopes, by the way, but if you're into skiing and you want to track record your performance, it's the best iOS and Android app out there. GetSlopes.com today, right now. And if you want your app promoted, send us some pizza money and get in touch.
Yeah. Imagine if we had sponsors for our like dozen listeners. That'd be amazing. I keep creating podcasts that have like 12 people who listen. Like I have like that is apparently the extent of the.
We had said before, and it's worth reiterating. The whole point of this is accountability, right? We're just trying to.
Yes. It's not about becoming like the next ATP or something.
I mean, that's a nice thing to have, but not the primary goal here.
Yeah, not our goal here at the moment. But if you do want to sponsor us, okay, move it on because we're going a little long here. So we still wanted to talk about a bunch of other topics, like complications was one of them up here. Did you want?
We can get past that because I think
we didn't really do much with complications.
I think that part, it's just more like I want to just make sure that I've tested properly, and that's more of a test debugging kind of thing. So we can talk about that later.
Okay. Notifications.
We already talked about that.
Pretty much. Yeah. I had the one issue about how to. Did we actually talk about that on the recording? How to actually jump to a Swift UI view? Because I thought that was a.
That's a good point, because it's a question of like we basically want to either figure out a way to do deep linking to the card to the test itself, which is valid. I actually set up a basics scheme for it, but I haven't. In Swift UI, it's kind of easy to do. If you're coming from a deep link, you can add a modifier to your view and say can open URL. And then you can kind of like, or you can even do it at the app level. It can open URL. It'll take the deep link. You do the parsing. It'll give you the URL back. You do the parsing, and then you say, okay, let's say this card deck had this kanji, and then we can open up like in a modal or like via like a modal notation, and just spit and then have a dismiss button there, so that when it comes back, it just comes back to the main view, which actually technically you can do the main view and then send it directly into the card view itself. The question that's going to come up is whether or not we have to we have to make sure we know what data to give the deck, so that the right kanji comes up correctly.
Well, here's the main issue I was talking about, though. It's a little bit different because it's handling the notification happens in my like manager class. It's a delegate method, like was user notification center did receive with complication handler. So in there, I handle when you tap the button that says no, I don't know or know it, and that updates our internal core data stuff. But can I jump from there to a screen? That's what I don't know. Is what happens now if you tap the notification. I don't think it does anything. I don't think it really, or it doesn't really.
I think it goes straight to the main app.
Right now, I think it just opens the app, right? But whatever screen you had open would be what shows up. So it's not the smoothest thing. Like I want it to go to the test because that's what would make sense to me. But it's Swift UI, so it's like, how do you even do that? I think we might need, and I think Aaron, you were talking about this too. We might need some kind of shared state on there that we can modify that would actually be like a Swift UI state way back in the abstract, maybe, and then that would. Because as I remember that we had the issue where we had a side effect of changing that user default variable that would track whether it was the first launch or not. And when we did that deeper in the view hierarchy, it was actually changing the state at the abstract, and that was causing the app to switch which view was coming up. So I was having problems updating the welcome flow because of that. So maybe that's what we would need to do, is you have basically a variable, a state variable there that would change, and then it would change what the window group is. That what it's called, what the abstract, what the window group actually does, the navigation view that comes up. That might be what would have to do it, unless there's some simpler way.
Yeah, like I sort of have that, but I think I need to move it up one level. It's at like the main menu level, but I should move it up to the app level. It's like just like a binding to a Boolean of is showing the view that you want. It's like bound to the is presented of your like navigation link, or is active navigation link. And that like
where is that?
Right now it's in the main menu view.
Oh, I see on continue user activity.
Yeah. That's. I should move that up one level to the app. I think it should still work. And then you could just, yeah. You might. I think you can still call that. I'm not sure if you can call that outside of like any Swift UI kind of thing. I don't know.
I know. I think I just need to change the state of whatever that value is that's checking on. Unless there's a simpler way that we're just missing here, and we're just, but that's the one thing I think that would make the notifications a little nicer there right now.
Is that something you can work on, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll look into it, see if I can get it to work while we're doing this last phase. But I was just wondering if anybody else had ideas. Sounds like, as usual, Aaron has the answers.
Aaron has all the answers.
No, I definitely don't. I have some answers.
Okay, so I guess we're up to, in the notes here, the call to action section.
All right, so if we are trying to get this done by before Christmas, I don't think we can. But I think we can at least push a submission before then to the App Store to do what you're saying, which is getting it approved by Apple, just so we can get it approved. We might not necessarily.
Well, I mean, we have 2 weeks right now from recording date to Christmas. Why don't you? What do we have left to do that would need to be done? It feels to me like this thing is pretty releasable as it is, even if it, could always use more polish. What are you thinking that is still missing?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm being cautious is what I'm trying to be, because I don't think we've collectively stress tested this on device. There's definitely little weirdness that I've noticed in the simulator, and I just wanted to make sure if it's there on device, I want to get rid of it.
So how do we stress test a Watch OS app on device or otherwise?
I mean, you got to keep playing with it, and especially like the daily, like every day testing the notification. Like one thing that I did notice that it crashed when I deleted the app and restarted the app. I'm sorry, deleted the app off the simulator and then do build and run to like install the app fresh. It gave a crash in the main thread. So I think in the simulator, and I think it's because something to do with the notification, like notifications looking for something that's not there.
Maybe I have to look at that. One of the issues is simulators and devices don't work the same, so sometimes one thing can happen and not on the other place. So you're concerned with stability more than anything else, making sure that's a good point. So okay, I did set I did start trying to test it with the latest build, make sure notifications work. So I'm going to go back to that, make sure they haven't broken. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll just stress test it as much as we can. But I don't think there's any features that we need. I think we're good with that. Feature complete, yeah.
No. Features were done. Everything from here on out, from this point to, let's say, pre-Christmas, whatever, is polish and refinements and tests. Like all the data I feel comfortable with reasonably. The layout does need some refinement, but nothing like game changing. Definitely no more features. We're done. We're on feature freeze.
Yeah. No more scope creep.
No more scope creep. So Siri will have to wait. And then the other thing is to make sure that we start we get the build working for Aaron's side, because actually Aaron needs to do the submission.
Yeah.
And then like marketing stuff, right? Screenshots, that kind of thing. So we need to make sure that we are like I think I'm not sure if we have access to your App Store account, Aaron, as not admins, but
I don't think we do. I don't think we have access to. I don't think there's a concept of app manager for a personal account.
You can. You just couldn't do signing and stuff.
Oh, okay. So then that's good. That means we could do like either one. Any of us could do metadata stuff then.
I think you can try it. Like I set that up. That was the first thing we did at the first episode. So
yeah, because I don't see you in my drop down of like accounts in the App Store. So maybe I didn't accept. But we can. That's the thing we need to get done for sure. Just so I can help Aaron with the submission of the app data. I'm sorry, the App Store metadata. And then so and make sure that Aaron, you give him maybe app management for that. Make him an app manager. That should be enough.
He has whatever he's allowed, whatever Apple allows him for.
Oh, you gave him like admin power, like like the most power he can have.
We're both admins, Kotaro. Yeah, you're an admin with your Gmail account.
My Gmail is just a Oh, maybe it's because it's my regular. So I have
using
like
the wrong
one.
Wrong account.
Okay. So basically, let's say our deadline is to get the app submitted by 23rd, right? So we have another meeting, not ironically, but conveniently enough, this coming Saturday. So we can do a lot of the sort of like, we can have another intermediate meeting about this, right? And then I think, what is it, the 26th, we have our follow-up recording.
Yep. That's supposed to be our finale recording, and then the final episode of season 1 should be, I don't know, probably maybe the 3rd. Be the 3rd in January, and then it'll be all wrapped up. So yeah, if we're gonna get this done, if you're listening to this, you could probably go to the. If you're listening to this over the holiday break, you might be able to find us in the App Store. Maybe not. We're not sure.
Since we don't have a name yet.
Name that app. Yeah.
We just can't tell anybody to search for it now because we don't know what to tell them to search for.
Yeah, we should probably have planned a little better so we could tell people.
Sure. I mean, all things considering, I think we've done a pretty good job in terms of our scheduling of what we were doing, with giving ourselves enough buffer for goofs and mistakes and sort of things that happen in life that get in the way. But
I think we're good. If we can get this thing a little bit more polished up, tested, most importantly, and then get Aaron's and pick a name, then we can actually get this thing done. I think in plenty of time. I don't even know if we have to wait till December 23rd. I mean, to submit something.
Well, I would want to get I know there's a
side project Saturday is when we originally said we were going. The last side project Saturday is when we said we were going to submit. That was our original deadline, I think.
I think it's worth thinking about it much more like that would be our because that's like within 1 week. So that would be a sort of like health check in terms of like, okay, where are we? Is this are we good, or should we test a little bit more, and just to get it to the finish line, so to speak.
Yeah, but if we can get in the 23rd, that'd be really nice. That'd be good. Good Christmas present for those that do Christmas.
Getting the 23rd, maybe we're posted online or something like that. Maybe on.
Okay, and we're definitely going to do a beta test, right? You going to do a public beta test? So if you're listening to this now, there might be a link in the show notes to get a public beta if we got our crap together in time. Okay, so I mean, is there anything else we wanted to go over today? I think we're kind of winding down version 1, and that's kind of how it is at the end. We're just kind of scrambling to polish things, get things in under the deadline. As we said originally, we were going to have to make choices at some point, and so we have. We cut any of the Siri intense stuff. Our complications are very basic, minimal complication support, but we got our core stuff in there. The core user interface is good. It works. Notifications work. The core data stuff and migrations work, so we can update the app. And now we're just in the process of putting together all of our metadata and final testing and polishing.
Testing, polishing, refinements. I'm probably going to make a cleaner version of the app icon. Stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I think it's. I'm amazed. We're actually very close now to releasing something, and we only started 6 episodes ago. So, do we only give us 2 months or something for this?
Like Coco, you kind of have to put your money where your mouth is in these regards.
I know, right? Well, good. We're close to maintaining our reps. We could still it's not get too comfortable. We could still not come up with a name, and then we'll never release this thing.
Look, we'll call it Kanji Cats and then call it a day.
Kanji Cats. No, we got to call it like Crypto Kanji Cats or something with crypto in it to get that ride that wave.
Apple will reject us like.
Yeah, we'll reject it because they crypto. Okay, Kanji Cats, close enough. Okay, I think we're good. So, any parting words for the listeners today, guys?
Aaron.
Just, I guess, point out any bugs if that beta test does go out.
Yes, just submit them through the app, and we'll get them in App Store Connect. We're trying to do everything within the tooling that Apple provides, however inadequate it is sometimes.
Fair enough.
Onwards to submission day.
Aaron has all the answers.
No, I definitely don't. I have some answers.